Well, Keith Smith's kind enough to join us once again. He covers the NBA for many a place, including most prominently Yahoo. You can find Keith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Are you and the family, everybody holed up in Orlando, doing okay?
Yeah, we are. We're doing all right. I think we're going a little stir crazy, and might start climbing the walls here a bit. My daughter misses her soccer team quite a bit, but she's back at the virtual school and all that, so we're hanging in there. How about y'all?
Well, 3 hours away, many a similar thought.
Wait a minute, virtual school. See, I am my daughter's kindergarten instructor outside of 2 Zoom meetings a week with the teacher. Virtual school? I mean, you're just putting her in front of and someone's teaching her? That's terrific.
Yeah, it's actually going pretty good. They only do a couple live meetings a day, but then the rest of it is their work, and the teachers are available by the chat function on their little website there, and it seems to be going pretty good. So thank God, because I was really struggling with those fourth grade fractions because they do not do math the way I learned it.
I have been. That is my biggest fear. It is the one thing that I've heard from people, because kindergarten's just kindergarten, but this new math has many a parent. Put it this way, Keith, harder to figure out, new math or the NBA salary cap?
Oh, new math for me by far and away.
Keith's kind enough to join us. Follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. First off, and you were quite witty on Twitter talking about, hey, I now get to say I covered horse on my resume, so that'll really help you going forward. But how'd you think the horse challenge on ESPN last night, how do you think it worked or didn't work? Because they're going to have the semis and the finals on Thursday night. Did it work?
I think it largely did work. It was a little bumpy, especially the first matchup, Trae Young and Chauncey Billups. I jokingly wrote for NBC Sports that it looked like they filmed it on flip phones from the turn of the century. Like, it just was rough. It didn't look very good. But as it went on, the matchups got a little more interesting. I thought the rapport was pretty good between the players and the announcer Mark Jones. I thought they all did a pretty good job with that. I thought they did a nice job kind of splicing in those stories in between. So overall, I think it more or less worked. It's not something I think anybody would want to watch on any kind of regular basis. But right now, when you're sports starved, I think it was kind of fun. I'd like to see the players get a little more creative, though, in the next round. When I play horse, I throw up hook shots and behind the head shots and all sorts of backwards things and things like that. And it was a lot more of just, straight jumpers and stuff like that.
Totally with you. I mean, let's see who can go left over and over from the free throw line or underhand or some of the silly stuff. This worked better than the 2K stuff because, well, turns out that was taped and some people may have taken advantage of this. I think the glitches, I said this earlier, Keith, I thought the glitches at least let us know everything was happening live. And in a world where we're all dealing with a lot of glitches, it's actually okay to let your guard down, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where, hey, it happened. I want to say it was both Paul Pierce and Chris Paul commented on how it had been raining where they are, which is a little odd in the Los Angeles area for this time of year, but they commented on that. So I think it really gave us a little bit of insight into what the mindset is like for these current players as well as the broadcasters, the WNBA players. It was that part for me was probably the most fun of it all. The basketball and the shooting competition, that was just kind of the framework to get to that.
For those that either didn't watch or missed it, Zach LaVine beat Paul Pierce, Mike Conley beat Tamika Catchings, Allie Quigley of the Chicago Sky beat Chris Paul, and Chauncey Billups edged out Trae Young. So LaVine, Conley, Quigley, and Billups in the semis and finals Thursday night, 9 o'clock on ESPN. Keith, based on the people that you've talked to around the league, if I give you thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down, where is the league right now in terms of we think we're at least going to give it a shot and try to play?
Yeah, it keeps vacillating between thumbs sideways and thumbs up from everybody I talk to. you hit them on the right day, and maybe the news reports are a little more optimistic, and they start to feel a little more optimistic that they can get this season back in some form or fashion. Everybody knows it's not going to be 82 games, and it's not going to be anything like what we're used to, but they believe they can put something together that will allow them to crown a champion that we all feel pretty good about, and we're not sitting there saying, well, they won in that weird 2020 season when we had the coronavirus. They feel like they can put that together. You catch them on the wrong day, and it starts to sound like it might be a little later. That's the challenge. Everything I've been told is they feel like they have to be wrapped up right around Labor Day. It could go a little bit beyond that, but if it's not wrapped up around Labor Day, you're really starting to push too much into next season, and that's what the NBA is very conscious of. Is if they're going to lose a chunk of this season, they'd rather not make it be, all right, well, now we're going to lose a chunk of this one and the next one, and really it's 3 years from now before we're settled back into a normal NBA season. So that's something that they're constantly weighing and looking at.
Well, Keith, I think the question we've asked, if there is a league that could change the way they do business, it's the NBA. For a lot of us, the NBA has done a really good job of saying we own Christmas Day. And there are a lot of people, myself included, who kind of think the NBA season starts on Christmas Day, not the month and a half before, of which I don't pay any attention. This season's going to go till Labor Day if they finish it, Keith. What are the chances of the NBA looking at this and going, baseball's dropped off. It's more regional than it's ever been. We could own July and start on Christmas. Could the NBA fundamentally change their business model coming out of this of when they play games?
Yeah, I think they could. We know that at the sports conference at MIT, the Sloan Conference, one of the Atlanta Hawks owners pitched the idea of basically shoving the whole calendar back by about 2 months. That was his idea, where you'd start about mid-December with really kind of taking Christmas as, kind of your big showcase, and we're really starting the season and it's getting going, but it's also not the first, games of the season. And then everything would move back about 2 months. That gets them clear with the vast majority of the NFL season. You're still going to compete with the last couple weeks of the regular season and the playoffs. But one of the things that the NBA looks at and says is, well, we feel like we already do kind of own July as a calendar month anyway, because it's free agency to kick off the month. Then we have Summer League right after that. And that really takes us all the way up to the start and opening of NFL training camp. And that's the thing that they're conscious of. One of the challenges that I've been told is the regional sports contracts. There are 20 markets where the same broadcaster broadcasts the local NBA team and the local MLB team. Now, when you're talking about 2 weeks in April, that's not a big deal. You can figure that out. They shove those games off to alternate channels or whatever the case may be. But now you're going to be talking months of that, and that's a challenge. Some of those teams have written in their contracts with those channels how often they can appear on the alternate channel in that. And both the NBA and MLB, they're going to be selfish with themselves. They're not going to at all care about the other league and how that works, and that they're going to want their team in the prime channel in the place where it's available. And even in some of those markets, the major cable provider, the alternate channel is not really a thing for them. So that's something that is one of the major question marks that will need to be worked out before we can look at any kind of permanent shift. That said, there are those in the league who think, hey, maybe if this thing forces us to start in mid-December next year, that's not the worst thing. It's kind of a nice grand experiment that we're going to get to take a look at and see how it works.
Well, TV money drives many a train in professional sports, though, so that what you brought up there is a big stumbling block. It could lead, though, to a lot more teams starting up their own networks, kind of like what the Cubs have just done and other baseball teams have done. Maybe that's where the NBA goes in the not-so-distant future. We're talking the association with Keith Smith, NBCSports.com, Yahoo, other outlets. Follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Back to the thought of this being a legitimate, not a quirky season. We had that strike year of 99 in which, what was it, 50 games? And nobody looks at that Spurs championship as a fluke. Now, maybe it's because they ended up winning 4 more, but nobody, discredits that 99 San Antonio Spurs. We had some playoff results in and around it that maybe wouldn't have happened if it wasn't a 50-game season. But to me, Keith, to me, if you're not going to play a full 82, why come back and play any regular season at all? I mean, Keith, you're in Orlando. The Magic have a 5.5-game lead over whoever it is for the final playoff spot. We know who the 8 playoff teams are in the East. And for that matter, Memphis has a 3.5-game lead over a trio of teams for the final playoff spot in the West. I mean, what do you think is the likelihood that the NBA, if it comes back, just comes back with the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that there is a couple things that are at play there from what I've been told. One is they would ideally love to get to 70 games because that is kind of the minimum. Those local TV contracts, that's kind of the minimum trigger for the vast majority of those deals. So that's where they would like to, and they're not that far off that. That's a couple weeks worth of games for the vast majority of the league. Now, the other thing is what I think they're really looking at is you're going to come back. You're going to do this ramp up of anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to get players in shape. Then they're going to do a regular season, which is shortened. It might only be 5 to 8 games total, but really treat those a little bit more like preseason games for the teams. Those teams that are established playoff teams, they can just kind of let their guys play, get back into rhythm. Those teams that are, clinging to hope of maybe getting in more on the Western Conference side, they do that. I've been told they can look at, do we adjust the schedule to make sure that those Western Conference matchups mean more so that those games get in there and they're going to actually help us really identify. So that's the things that they're looking at. But the vast majority of what they're motivated by is saving the NBA playoffs and saving it in some form and fashion of what we're used to. They rejected a single elimination tournament out of hand because that would be immediately everyone would say, well, that champion, they only won that because it was like the NCAA tournament that year. They don't even really want to go to best of 3 or best of 5 series if they can avoid it. That is on the table if need be. But one of the things that they're looking more into is, well, in the playoffs, there's no back-to-back, but there might need to be this year, get some back-to-backs in there. That allows more 7-game series. That's the most important thing that they're trying to conserve.
Yeah, that whole thing just bums me out, hearing the just infatuation with best of 7. I guess as someone who grew up watching best of 5 series go to 5 games and mean something, I know the best team wins the best of 7, and that's why they've done it. But, man, I think they're missing out on some drama elements this year, and I think I'd be with them. A one-and-done tournament sounds ignorant, but getting back to some best of 5s, to me, isn't that damaging. Why does the league feel that a best of 5 or a best of 3 is so damaging, Keith?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things at play. We talked about it earlier. It's the TV money. They want as many games on TV as possible so that they can really fulfill that obligation there and make the most money off it. The second is, which is, should be the primary motivator, but I don't think it is. Money generally is, as with most things, is that they want to make sure that they crown the best champion possible. Now, there are people who are big proponents of just in a regular year going back to best of 5 in at least the first round because they like that drama. They like that, ability. There's been proposals put out there of we'll do best of 5, but the higher seed gets 4 games at home, and that's the way to do it. And those kind of things so that they still have that pretty significant advantage, but, you do have that little bit of that variance in there. So that's out there. I think there is the potential we could see that resume for this year. And the thing with the NBA, I think more than most leagues, is they're a little willing to experiment and say, hey, this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's deal with it and figure it out and look at what it ends up looking like, which, and then some of those things they may take and put into play in the future because I think that is something that they, are viewing this as, like I said, it's a grand experiment. Let's figure it out for this year. But if it works, hey, maybe we can introduce that down the line.
Keith, thanks for your time and your insight. All the best to you and the family. Stay safe, and hopefully we can talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I hope you all stay safe as well.
Keith Smith, NBC Sports and Yahoo. Follow him on Twitter, Keith Smith NBA. Hunkered down in Orlando, kind enough to join us here on Miller and Moulton. Brian Costello, talk a little Jets heading into the draft. in about 15 minutes' time. But, Mark, we would be remiss because, we've mentioned whether it was the horse challenge, Drew Brees signing with NBC as to when his playing days are done. We, mentioned a few other things that have happened in the sports world since we were last on the air until today. But the one thing that took place in the middle of the day on Friday, which came out of nowhere, was the XFL folded. And no one in the XFL knew it was coming. Talked with Mark Trestman, head coach and GM of the Vipers, on Saturday, and he said, shocked. Crushed was actually the word he used. Absolutely crushed. So, and Vince is said, at least to those in the XFL, I got no plans of, giving this a try when the whole COVID-19 thing's done. By the way, this is it. So it ends up being one and done, and not even a full one and done.
No, it goes the way of the AAF.
Correct.
Of a mid-season fold.
And they played actually less games than did the AAF. And they had a good television agreement with ESPN and Fox.
They had decent television numbers.
Yep.
There was nothing about the product that said it would fold. Now, I don't know if it would have ever made money. I truly don't.
I don't think so.
I never
really
did.
Don't. Right.
You know I never did. But
right. But we talk all the time, or we have in the last month, what leagues are going to change because of the coronavirus and what leagues are going to fail because of the coronavirus. This, to me, is the first league that shut down because it's not just Vince, in my opinion, looking forward to, well, heck, we may be uncertain in the winter of 2021 as to whether or not, this is still out there and whether or not we're going to be able to play. To me, this is the coronavirus has impacted his other business in a big way.
There's no doubt.
And so he had put whatever the money was, $250 million, whatever it was, he had put to the side to have the XFL make it. Well, he was counting on the rest of his empire still generating the cash it normally does.
Right. This is what may happen with the Miami Heat. This is what may happen with the Houston Rockets. The owner of the Rockets owns, is it Landry's Seafood Company? I mean, he has thousands of restaurants. He has 30,000 people, I believe, or 300,000 people that he laid off already. Aronson owns the cruise line. I mean, this is how they keep their sports teams afloat.
Right. Right. The sports teams are largely a vanity play. They make money. They don't make money. They're fine with it because their empire, if I lose a few $1 million, I can handle it. Well, not if my empire is on shaky ground.
Now, for the Heat or the Rockets or any other franchise that may have this, someone will be there to buy it. Someone always has the money. And as David says, it's a vanity play. So the franchises won't lose value the way that we've seen airlines lose stock value or techs lose stock value through all of this. They will not take the same type of hit because there are just so few of them. But we could see ownership change when this is all said and done. There is no doubt that what the XFL is saying is that there could be ownership change. Where I would be far more worried about teams is at the minor league level.
Absolutely. And we said that we thought at the major league level we could see some ownership change, but we wondered what minor leagues may go away or what fledgling even professional leagues at the highest level. Like, once again, there's a women's professional soccer league, and they had just put together some nice contracts and some nice sponsorship. How could you not with this great group of players that you have right here to market? Well, the Olympics push back another year. Obviously, corporations, or some of them, are not going to be spending anywhere near the money that they have spent in the past. And so you wonder if leagues like that, never mind minor leagues. I mean, listen, I'm hoping to get on Bob Arablo back from the Mighty Muscles here. I mean, imagine, Mark, you buy the team. Whether you made changes to the name and the logo or not, but you just bought the team. I don't know if they've played a game under the new ownership. I think the sale took place after last season.
Correct.
So if baseball, they've got this plan, Mark. One of them out there is maybe teams will play in their minor league ballparks in Arizona and Florida. Well, if Hammond Stadium's occupied for the Twins, when are the Mighty Muscles going to be able to play? I mean, there may not be a Florida State League season this year, even if there's a Major League season this year.
100%. I mean, little thing. Yes, David. The G League, they have their season going on. I mean, there are a lot of other leagues out there. I've been thinking, here's the MLS, which is where I would have been putting my money 10 years ago. I was the one that said, get in on this.
Yes.
This is going to boom. And because of that, there's all these other, and we've talked on this show, are we a tier 2 soccer market? We've kind of joked around about trying to get franchises. That whole North American Soccer League or whatever the hell it's called, the tier 2 league, how are these franchises going to survive? If people aren't going to be, if we are under the assumption, based on the polling, not just our little silly one, but nationwide, that fan bases are very apprehensive to go back. Well, we've already said the NFL, the NBA, they're fine. They're TV sports. Golf, NASCAR, fine. But the majority of sports require people to walk in the doors for these teams to make a profit. If we're all apprehensive about going out, what's the trickle-down effect to the rest of these sports franchises?
I mean, I would think, just off the top of my head, if I owned a minor league baseball team, if we can't sell tickets to the games, I would rather not play. Because I'm guessing I would lose more by opening my doors than I would if I kept them locked.